Hello and welcome to Warcraft Daily for today, the 30th of November 2013. So, last day of November and, well, nothing really special about it because of Thanksgiving, Black Friday, I suppose, and a whole bunch of other things. There really isn't a great deal going on. So the only bit of news that I want to say is that you have until December the 2nd, if you want to avail of any of the cheaper deals on Battle.net, I think. Base World of Warcraft is a $5, that's $5, and Mists is $10, and I think it's either 50 or 75% off the StarCraft 2, Heart of the Swarm, and just the base game. But anyway, into the actual show today. Well, first of all, it's really just going to be a lot of different questions and answers. I've got a few here. Don't worry if your question isn't here. If it's probably not here because it's one that maybe is deserving of a longer explanation. Just, some things it's quicker to explain, and therefore I'm putting them here. So let's get into the questions. The first one is from Ludwig B, and he says, what do you think of leveling to 100 instead of 95? And what are you going to play in Warlords of Draenor, PvE or PvP? And what do you think of the PvE information we've got so far? Well, first of all, I'm going to be leveling my Hunter up to level 100. I'm probably going to be PvEing. I might at some point get my Warrior up to level 100 and then go Arms PvP because it looks very fun. As far as like the PvE information we've got so far, I think everything's fantastic. I really like the new changes to armor and that sort of thing, just provided it's balanced, but I think they'll manage that. In terms of raid structure and things like that, I'm happy with all that stuff, and I think garrisons are great. And for level 100 instead of 95, I actually think this is fantastic. So the problem in Mists of Pandaria for me was you have these 5 levels, which meant you only really got to go to only a few zones. And the problem with that is places just, they got old fast. Jade Forest was really cool up until halfway through, then it was just a slog. Valley of the Four Winds, same thing. Conlai, same thing. Dread Waste, just, you want to hurt yourself when you're in there. And as well, what it sort of meant that as you went through again and again through Pandaria, the only real choice was Conlai, or not Conlai, the one to the very south. I think, is it Conlai something? No, that's the mountain. Oh, mind blank, whatever. Like, it was either that or Valley of the Four Winds. That was the only choice you got. It wasn't enough. And I just think the levels and the zones in general were very stale after a while. The nice thing about level 100 is you get to go through the zones in a nice, snappy pace. You're going to be getting more XP per quest. You're going to be leveling up faster and going through more levels. That means you have more points through the questing experience in which you get a new piece of power. For an example, one of your abilities upgrades. That can happen 10 times instead of 5, and it seems like they're spacing out upgrades so that they're nice and spread out over the 10 levels. I think that's really good. I think a more snappy quest flow and a more snappy leveling experience is nice, and I think that having 10 levels is just more conducive to that. So, I mean, yeah, I'm just happy with it overall. Hopefully there'll be, perhaps if you're going through it again on a second character, they will still have enough zone variation so that you'll be able to go through 2 different routes or something like that. That's what I really liked about Northrend. Personally, my favourite leveling experience was in Northrend, and the closer we get to that, the better. So, the next question is from Zanways Dodd, and he says, hey, with the XP potion, how will they work? Is it a 100% permanent increase for everything? Essentially, just how do they work? Essentially, it is a 100% XP bonus from mob kills and from quests, and it lasts for 1 hour per potion that you buy. You can buy them in stacks to make them a bit cheaper, and that's really it. Of course, these are not actually in the game at the minute, like in the actual live thing, and they may only initially go to Korea and the Chinese areas. Of course, this stuff's all on the PTR because, it's just the PTR build, but it might only go there and not here, so it's hard to know. I'd imagine, though, that at the very least, we will have the mounts and pets in the in-game store for the West. So, yeah, there's that. Now, the next one is from Philip Conradson. I think, yeah, that's it. He is definitely the son of Conrad. What is the lore behind Uldum? Well, the lore behind Uldum is actually a little bit similar to Ulduar in that they were both Titan-constructed places. And I will get on to be do a full video of Uldum soon. The reason I'm not doing one now is because I'm still on the Warlords of Draenor stuff. We're onto the Draenei at the minute. That's what I'll be doing tomorrow. But also I'm traveling, traveling. Had to go home, so I'm not using my proper setup or anything, so I don't really have time to do a full video. But basically, Uldum, that's one of the places where the Earthen came from. The Earthen, once they were affected with the Curse of Flesh, turned into the Dwarves. which is pretty cool. If you go in there, you'll find there's a lot of Titan artifacts and that sort of thing, and it really was one of the more early kind of hints to the whole Titan history of Azeroth that was put into the game. But Uldum's definitely interesting lore, and actually I remember leveling through the Badlands and through Uldum and that sort of thing way back in the day, and it was very fun, I think. To me, it was very interesting lore, and I just like the place in general. Of course, the more information, I'd like to know more and have that expanded a little bit. I really love the Titan story and that lore, so yeah, it would be nice. Anyway, I will eventually research into a full video on it. It'll probably be in my run of... I only got to do 2 of them before the Warlords of Draenor stuff dropped, but I was in the process of doing a series where I go through all the old world dungeons and raids and that sort of thing, and I give the full lore, the backstory, anything about the characters inside. So yes, Uldum will be covered by that. Next is from Connor Moore, I think Moore, and he says, wasn't Terran Gorfiend the first Death Knight? Well, technically, yes, he was the first Death Knight, but there's really 2 forms of Death Knights. There are the old Gul'dan Death Knights, which are, I suppose, a little bit less warrior, slightly more magic-y, like Warlock magic-ish. And then there's Arthas's Death Knights, which are more kind of necromantic style. They're a little bit more heavily armored, more melee, more that sort of style. And I think Arthas's ones, personally I find them way cooler, but yes, Terran was the first of the original well, I don't know if he was the first. I think he was the first of the original Death Knights, but Falric was the first of the current kind of tier of Death Knight, I suppose. So yeah, we were both right, as it turned out. Next one's from Syntharian, who says, love the content, any tips on getting subs for myself? And this is just one thing, because first of all, thank you, but also I know there are a decent amount of people who have YouTube channels that watch my stuff. So my biggest tip is, don't try to emulate someone else's success. You want to start off with something that works for you, that you enjoy, and then kind of grow into your own format. Now, the way that happened for me, I originally started this channel because I wanted to get better at StarCraft 2, so that's why my first 10 videos are just StarCraft 2 stream things. But then I was like, I want to do more videos. I kind of got the bug. I was like, what am I going to do? And I went on to, I think it was WoW. I saw a news post, and I was just like, hey, I remember I used to watch that TV show ages ago, and he doesn't do it anymore, and I really enjoyed that, so I think I'll make it. So, it's the sort of thing where, was I directly trying to emulate TotalBiscuit? No, I wasn't. It was more something that I kind of grew into and filled a void, I guess. And then from that, I started doing the Q&A, and really just growing into things that I felt would be interesting to my audience. That's what you need to do. Initially, it's very important that you focus on things that are... like things, as an example, I had a look in your channel, say you're, like, was it your, one of your guides that had more videos than anything else? You want to sort of focus on doing content like that, you know? At the very start, it's okay, like, it's fine if you want to do content that you really want to do, that's absolutely the priority, but you, like, at the end of the day, you want as many people to see your stuff as possible. That's one of the things about YouTube, so I'd focus on really growing at the start. And then once you have an audience that you're happy with, then you can sort of more differentiate and do things that are perhaps less popular, less SEO friendly in terms of search engines and stuff like that, but stuff that's really fun. That's what I've kind of done at the minute. You know, like the Q&A is a good example. Something that initially wouldn't work at all, but once you grow your audience a bit, then a Q&A works really well. But stuff like that. Yeah, but in general, if you are doing a YouTube channel, just be yourself, do what you think is fun. Don't say like, oh, there's PewDiePie, I want to get as many millions and millions of, well, probably many millions of Swedish kroner, I suppose, but he's making about $6 million a year, probably more because of endorsements and shit. So you can't just look at him and say, I want to be like that, because it just won't work. Just like, while say my channel may end up growing to fill a void for some people that TotalBiscuit's used to, it didn't start off as being, I'm going to be TotalBiscuit Mark II. That didn't happen, because if I did that, I would have failed. I can guarantee that. So, yeah, anyway, to all the people who watch my channel who are doing their own thing, best of luck to you. You can do it. You just need to be yourself and do all that stuff. Anyway, the next one is from ZP Actu, who says, do you have any tips on how to motivate a guild to make everyone excited and prepared for heroic progression? Any tips personally? Well, I'm not in a heroic raiding guild. I'm in a guild who does heroic mode sometimes. Once we clear the content, we usually get about 3 or 4 heroics done before the tier ends, whatever. As for just making people motivated, well, it depends if people really want to do heroics. Ultimately, if they don't want to do heroics, they don't want to do heroics, and there's no amount of, like, pumping them up and stuff like that that's really going to get them enthused for it. But if they're already people who are up for heroics, what you just need to do is, if you're a raid leader, or whoever the raid leader is, you just need to be really positive and fun, friendly, that sort of thing. There needs to be a really good environment there, so people can just sort of chill out, but still learn at the same time. I think that unless you're going for world first, there's no point in shouting and being all serious. Just make sure people are well prepared beforehand, so there's no frustrating wipes. And then sometimes, one thing I definitely say, if there's a kill, and on that night it just isn't happening, and maybe you need to go off and do something else to get some gear, or there's another boss you could attempt, I'd say that it's usually a good idea to go off and attempt that other thing to keep things break it up a little bit. And for keeping motivation going, if there's any way that you can avoid just doing the same boss 4 nights a week constantly, because that's only going to be, that will only be manageable for a very small amount of people, which is fair enough, more power to them, they're really, really good and skilled at this, but that kind of progression only works for some people, and if you are doing that, you just need to make sure the people in your team are, that's really the sort of thing that suits them. So the next and final question is from Raymond Simone Hill. I think that's how you pronounce Simone? I'm not sure. Anyway, so he says, so my question is, would you like to see World of Warcraft get a little bit more graphic deaths? So stuff like people's arms getting lopped off, or bloody deaths, or things like that. And he says that he feels the animators could have a lot of fun with cool killing blows. Well, first of all, I think for the ultra graphic stuff, I just don't think it works for normal World of Warcraft at all. But that's fair enough. Although, I really liked, for an example, the Taran Zoo, when he got impaled with the axe. I thought that was really cool, because it's the sort of thing where if they keep graphic deaths, or really graphic things, and only use them in times when they really are meaningful, then it just emphasizes it. So, when Taran Zoo got impaled by that axe, you thought, whoa, shit, that doesn't normally happen in World of Warcraft, they must mean business. But if every single character just had their head chopped off all the time, I'm not really too sure it would work. Now, that said, more interesting death animations? Absolutely. And we're going to get them, that's the good news, in my opinion, because all these new models, and stuff like that, means that when you kill a human or you kill an orc, it's going to have a higher quality death animation. Perhaps if there was more varied ones, so there was a death animation for if you were killed by a melee weapon, or maybe a death animation if you were hit by a spell, maybe just 2 or 3 death animations to keep things varied, I think that would be really cool. So, yeah, another thing is that the death noises will probably change, because they're going to be upping some of the graphical fidelity, the sound fidelity, and they're doing new sound assets for some of the models, so I think, yeah, they can do a lot of great stuff there. You might say, what do you think? Would this be good, or have I been playing too many violent video games? Well, you know what? It's impossible to play too many violent video games. The only people that go mad after playing violent games are people who have, a pre-existing mental disorder. All those school shootings in America and stuff. First of all, they're terrible, but, I mean, what do you expect if people can just go to a store and buy a gun? There is a reason why they don't happen that much in other countries. But no, it's okay. Organizations will lobby for whatever the fuck they want to. But anyway, those people, it always gets blamed by media and shit, but the actual reason is because those people are mental. So no, you have not been playing too many violent video games, and high fidelity deaths can be really cool. I remember in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, I hated that game. Actually, I've hated nearly every Call of Duty since, apart from Black Ops 2, because I play that with friends and I was really good at it, so I could just... It wasn't the fun of the game, it was more the fun of destroying people, but I digress. Call of Duty 5. Only a game that I played socially because of the zombies mode with my friends from school, because they weren't PC gamers, they were not members of the PC Gaming Master Race, and I also had an Xbox, so, yeah, may as well. But one of the cool things about that game was, you could shoot people's limbs off, and we'd have de-limbing matches where your kill would only count if you took the limb off, and some of them were ridiculous. But, yeah, I mean, visceral stuff works well. I just don't think it would really fit perfectly with World of Warcraft, honestly. If there's blood and guts appearing everywhere, it just doesn't work with the cartoony style. But, yeah, I think things like that, they can be saved for special occasions where they really are meaningful, and I think that's the way to do it. Anyway, wow, this episode ended up being longer than I thought. One last thing I just should probably say to Syntharian and the YouTube people, audio quality. That's actually one of the biggest things. I personally have spent 140 quid in the microphone and 80 on the stand, and I'll be spending another 40 in a shock mount. If you want to be taken seriously, you really need good audio quality. Video quality is easy because you just get fraps or like Shadowplay or something. And yeah, that's essentially it. Anyway, thank you for watching, and please leave any questions you have for the Q&A because I'll be like filling up my list soon. But anyway, thanks, and I'll see you next time.